to see, the little sparkle in people's eyes when they get it. That's my drug. I really love it.
Hello and welcome to the Science for Societal Progress podcast. For this episode, I talked with Elodie Chabrol about her work as a science communicator and her main project, Pint of Science. And if you want more information, don't forget to check out the show notes on our website, www.scienceforprogress.eu. It includes a summary and resources for further reading. I decided to leave this episode in more of a conversational tone. If you like this, you might be interested in checking out our Patreon account, where I post the whole conversations with my guests. www.patreon.com/sciforprogress. I'm your host, Dennis Eckmeyer, and you're listening to episode 25 of the Science for Societal Progress podcast.
My name is Elodie Chabrol, and I'm a freelance science communicator. So most of my time I spend it organizing the Pint of Science festival with different countries and France as well. And I also do some of the things that basically are all science communication. So I'm training some scientists sometimes. Sometimes I give talks, etc., etc.
Do you have a scientific background?
Yes, I do actually. I did a PhD in Paris. And then I did 9 more years of research in London. 7 years in London and 9 more years in total. So I'm a neuroscientist, and I worked on epilepsy before. And I left research not long ago, actually, only summer 2017.
Oh.
So I have quite
interesting.
Yeah, I have quite a long background in science.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, interesting. This is great. I'm also realizing that even if I don't plan it, I still end up with neuroscientists. I'm a neuroscientist myself.
We're everywhere.
Susanne Lemburg is a neuroscientist. And so is my co-host Bart Gurten, by the way. And of course, there are some that I knew from before, and that's why they're neuroscientists, but they also go into science communication. So that's a really interesting phenomenon, I must say. What made you transfer or transition into science communication? What are your goals with your communication? And
So I think at the start, I didn't really realize the power of science communication and the need for that. So I started my second postdoc, so second science work at UCL, and I got that email from the people starting to organize Pint of Science. It was really, really fresh. And they were looking for volunteers to organize the festival. And I always loved organizing things. So I just said, I would be super up for it. And I was supposed to organize a brain bar, so just a bar, 3 nights about brain. And actually, I called just at the moment someone that was organizing the whole university, so coordinating everyone, just quit. And I was working at that university, and they offered me to do that. So I got the opportunity to actually be in the central team, and really co-organize Pint of Science and co-create it. And after that first Pint of Science, so 2013, I realized I really loved it. And it was always kind of part of me, the science communication. But I think I just needed to be part of Pint of Science to realize that, because, I'm a scientist and I've always been trying to talk about my science and my research to people around that are not always scientists. And I always got weird reactions like, it's going to be too complicated. I don't want to hear what you do. Or people always think you do something, but it's not really what you do. And you just want to explain to them. But sometimes it gets difficult. And I think I was frustrated of that. And it was always inside of me. And now I'm doing science communication. It's actually one of my my fuel, the need to actually be sure scientists can share their stories. And there is no cliche on scientists being, not approachable and science being too complicated to be explained.
Yeah, that's a good reason to do it, I think.
Yeah.
I myself still struggle with this because people always say, jargon is bad because people don't understand it, and you just are just trying to sound smart. But I must say, jargon is very useful. It's very practical because you have all these concepts packed into a word that doesn't, the concepts don't exist in the experience of everyday people who are not scientists. So it's really hard to always have to describe the concept instead of just saying the word that you know is meant to mean the exact concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's work actually. It can be a lot of work. But once you manage to say the things the right way, it's just magical to see, the little sparkle in people's eyes when they get it. That's my drug. I really love it.
Fantastic. So when you realize that people wouldn't necessarily understand what you're trying to say, or they even immediately say, no, I will not understand it, so just don't even start. Did you try to figure out how to do the communication better? Did you look up books or how-tos on how to do science communication, or did you just jump in and join Pint of Science and try on the job in quotes?
So I did it before. So basically, I didn't read books or anything, but for years I wanted to talk about my science. So basically, I've tried on everyone that was basically saying, no, I don't want to hear from it, or, it's going to be too complicated. I was like, okay, give me 2 minutes and I will try. So basically, I've been trying for years. It's just, I think I didn't realize I was doing that. And that was science communication. It's just that for me, it was just me trying to talk to people. And you're just learning. Like the first time you're not doing quite correctly and you see people don't get it, so you have to re-explain and re-explain until one day you arrive to actually know how to talk about things to the public and to someone that is not a scientist. So then it just becomes natural, and when you listen to scientists sometimes speaking, you realize this isn't supposed to be said, or you should say like that. And the more you do it, the more it becomes like something you always think when someone's talking, when a scientist talking. For example, I was doing my the lab meetings, so basically the meetings where everyone in the lab is there, and it was a really big lab, so lots of people were doing different things. And I was always super frustrated because most of the time I wasn't getting anything they were saying. And I was thinking, I'm a scientist, I'm working with them in their lab, but I'm just doing another field. And they cannot even reach out to me. How can they reach out to anyone? Even, when you apply for grants, for fundings, for fellowships, for things like that, people are not exactly in your field. So it's something that we need in science, not just to do communication to the public, but science.
That's actually something that I realized myself too, that even if you think you're communicating within your field, when you write a grant, for example, you can make it too difficult for the reviewers to understand when they're not exactly using the same methods or are not familiar with the tools or with your approach. So I completely understand that problem. I actually also had similar situations in lab meetings.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I learned how to do it. And then when I did Pint of Science, I just used everything I learned all this year without realizing I was learning that actually.
Mm-hmm. So it was more like a natural
Yes.
transition thing
Yes.
than a conscious decision to, okay,
Yes.
I'm trying to learn SciComm now.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you apply that now? I know that you're doing several different SciComm projects.
Yes. So, Pint of Science first. So we're organizing. So usually I give talks to explain why Pint of Science is, but I also do some science communication. So sometimes podcasts on science or radio shows where, I need to talk about the science news or things like that. But I also started training scientists for Pint of Science. So having little meetings before the Pint of Science festival to basically just have them gather in a room that usually is a pub. So they see how it's going to be, the atmosphere. And then see with them what they wanted to do and give them a bit of background of the festival and tips on how to do better. Because sometimes some of them it's the first time they do it, so they think it's going to be okay, it's going to be like my live meeting, but except I'm going to be a bit more careful, but they realize they have 10 graphs in their presentation and it's not possible. And or they just don't know how to present to the public. They'll be afraid because they think people are not going to listen, or they're not going to necessarily pay attention because they are in a pub. So usually I just put them in situation and I show them, people are going to listen, and you just have to be careful to avoid, for example, graphs, jargon, how to think it better. If you need to use a word, just try to explain it good. Things like that. So basically, those are my main projects, and I'm also doing on the side some training for scientists to do communication. So, for example, pitch, like very short presentations of science. So of their research, like 3-minute thing. I was a jury in my thesis in 180 seconds last year. For the semi-final. So basically it's a competition where PhDs have to talk about their thesis in less than 3 minutes. That was actually a really great experience because, there were 56 in a day to judge. So I've seen 56 PhDs. It was super intense, but it was really good because you see so many things in science communication and so many situations. It's really good, and you learn lots of things with them, and hopefully you give them back as well some tips and everything. So either to be better for the final or to be better in general if they want to continue. So that's basically everything I'm doing.
Okay. May I ask how you earn your living?
Yes, I'm a freelancer. So part of it is Pint of Science, and the rest is usually with either communication agencies that take me for training scientists, or what else? Well, yeah, and I do a lot of social media as well. So I do trainings for scientists to use mainly Twitter, but I can help some science companies as well to define their social media strategies and things like that. So that I do freelance as well for that.
Oh, cool.
It's all very new for me because, I was still a scientist a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to see which projects I can basically work on, and what I can do to help scientists. Basically, everything is about getting science out, either on social media or like in live events or things, anything.
Because I just left academia myself, this is maybe a personally motivated question. Was it easy for you to find these gigs where you go and teach people how to do science communication? Did you find that easy?
Yes and no. So it wasn't easy in a way that I left research a year and a half ago. But for 4 years, I was a postdoc and I was doing Pint of Science.
At the same time.
So yes, at the same time. So basically, it's like I had 2 jobs for 4 years.
Okay.
So it was easy because the transition was quite smooth, actually. I started, coming back to France, giving lots of talks for Pint of Science, talking about Pint of Science, and it's quite respected now. So people know what I've done. But all the things I've done for science communication were basically while I had my job. Still, I was a researcher. So basically, it was a double full-time thing. So it was easy, but it's because I've
put also not
so
easy.
much work. Exactly. So when people ask me if it's easy or not, it's really hard to say, because actually it was easy. As soon as I left academia, it was quite smooth.
Right.
But it was so much work before, especially the first years of Pint of Science. When you're creating something, the first year in UK was amazing, and then I created France. And it was completely new, and it was still not well known. People didn't know what it was. It was just a one-time thing in the UK. So It was really, really hard. It was lots of nights not sleeping,
Oh, wow.
preparing festivals, stressing out, making sure everything was fine.
Yeah.
So now it's much more, it's much smoother. When it opens in a new country, people usually sometimes hurt from it, so they are happy it's opening. But the start was a lot of work. So yes and no.
I actually know some of the organizers for the Pint of Science in Portugal, in Lisbon.
Oh,
yeah.
good. But it's funny because everywhere I go, I feel like people are telling me, "Oh, but I know some organizers, or I know some people that did some talks," or it's just always connected. Like, "Oh yeah, Pint of Science, I heard from it." Actually, if you have time for one funny anecdote,
of course,
the day I realized Pint of Science was really big, it was not long ago. It just I'm so much working always on Pint of Science that sometimes it's hard to step back and realize how big it became. But basically, my boyfriend was in Hong Kong with his Pint of Science front T-shirt, and he was in a hotel in a completely full lift, and a lady came to him and asked where he got his T-shirt from. So he said, "Oh, it's from Pint of Science, a festival, blah, blah, blah." I started pitching it. And she said, no, I know what it is. I'm a huge fan in Australia.
Fantastic.
But I just wanted to know where you got your T-shirt. So basically, he was in Hong Kong wearing a French Pint of Science T-shirt, and an Australian fan asked him where he got his T-shirt. And he told me that. I was like, yeah, we're everywhere.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, that was the funniest one. I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, that's a lot of nationalities all together.
Okay, so we've actually already talked about Pint of Science a lot, but there are probably still people out there who don't know it. So would you just explain what it is?
So Pint of Science is a festival that happens every May, during 3 nights from Monday to Wednesday, mid-May. Sometimes, so not exactly set dates, but depends on the year. The idea is to basically take science to the public. So we're taking scientists, we're putting them in bars and pubs, and they have to explain their research to the public. And we started in the UK in 2014, and this year we're going to be in 24 countries over the world.
Yeah, that's significant.
That's crazy. And last year, so the numbers of 2018, basically in 3 nights in the world, we had 120,000 people.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's pretty big.
That's pretty big. So it's great because it's covering all kinds of science. Basically, every country has a website. You can find all the details on pintofscience.com, which is the international website. And we're covering lots of different science. We're trying to be in every city. It's getting bigger and bigger in every country every year, because the first year we're settling and then we're reaching smaller cities year by year. We're increasing. So this is quite great. And we're almost everywhere. So America, South America, Europe, Russia, Asia, and South Africa. So we're really trying to go everywhere, not just Europe, or really, really trying.
Oh, this is really great. So what are the dates for this year?
So this year we're the 20th to the 22nd of May.
Okay, so everybody knows that they should look out for their local Pint of Science festival, so that they can have a beer and learn something.
Exactly. And on social media, if you look for us, we're #Pint19. Every year we need a new hashtag, because we're flooding the social media during the festival. So if you want to have fresh posts of this year, it's Pint19.
Okay.
So it was Pint18 if you want to see last year's festival. But yeah, this year it's Pint19.
And you're on Twitter, of course, and also on Instagram?
Yes, so most of the countries are on Instagram, not all of them, but all of them are on Twitter and on Facebook. We also have the international account, that is Pint's World, that basically shares everything about everyone. So we're trying to really show what's happening everywhere in the world. So it's going to go crazy in May. I know that we're going to have lots of different things. Usually we tend to have local scientists because we want to share what's happening around people. It's quite nice, you walk in front of a science institute every day. It's quite nice to go and have a drink with a scientist that works next to your house or next to your work. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I just know that we're going to have many, many different subjects. So it's going to be nice. You always find something cool, actually.
So you mentioned that you started working with Pint of Science pretty early when they just started. So
Yeah.
is this the 6th year of Pint of Science?
So it's the 7th year in UK and
okay.
6th year internationally.
Mm-hmm. How did it all start? Do you've been in the UK when it started, if I understood that right?
Yeah.
So did you learn how but you weren't a founding member, if I understood that right?
No.
So
No.
do you know how the founders started?
So the founders are Michel Motskin and Praveen, two scientists. And basically, they did some open lab day where they received patients with neurodegenerative disease. And they realized they really loved being there and seeing all the lab and all the things happening and all the science. The thing is, they also realized that it is a pain to get the public in labs because of the security, because of so many things. You don't get to get lots of people in the lab. So they just thought, instead of bringing people to the lab, why not bring the lab to people?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's the UK. So they thought, what's the place that is a bit like home? The pub. So they thought, okay, let's bring scientists to the pub. The thing is, of course, this idea is not new.
Mm-hmm.
We had science in bars since forever, in cafes. It was like, centuries actually. But the different thing is that Pint of Science was designed as a music festival. Lots of different things. Yeah, a bit like music festival. Lots of different scenes. Same times you have to pick because you have only 3 days
Mm-hmm.
and so many things to see. So kind of celebrating science in that way. So this is why it's could be frustrating because you have only 3 nights. You cannot go to all the talks, but it's nice because it's a big moment and you have to pick your favorite one and you go and it's the same. So the same 3 nights all over the world actually. As well. Some people ask me sometimes if it's a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how it was created. So at the start of Pint of Science, I think we were 100% scientists doing it. So let's just be clear, we were really stressed.
Yeah,
because,
I can imagine.
none of us, none of us had any, marketing organization, any kind of experience. I just had organized my wedding. So this is the biggest organizing experience I had,
Mm-hmm.
which was quite crazy, because when you go down to lots of details, you actually realize event planning is the same, whatever you organize. So it was crazy. We basically just made sure it happened and made sure it was good, everything. We had a bit of merchandise to distribute. We got it the morning before, It was just everything was last minute because we were just figuring out how to do it at the same time we were doing it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we didn't know if it would be just a one-off or if it would be more than that and everything. So basically, after the success, we had 3,400 people the first year.
Oh, wow. The first year, 3,000 people.
Yeah, it was crazy in 3 cities. So it was 3 cities, 3 nights, 3,000 and something people.
Wow.
Exactly. So we were like, oh, wow, that was good.
You really hit a nerve there.
Exactly. What do we do now? What do we do with that? It's not a one-off for sure. So what's the direction now? And the thing is, I'm French and I really loved Pint of Science. So I tried to get Pint of Science to go international, because I really thought at that time, it's amazing doing that in one country, but if we could have that at lots of different places at the same time, how amazing would that be?
Yeah.
And just after that meeting, I created the Facebook page for Pint of Science France. So basically, that's the birth of Pint of Science France. And we decided, okay, why not go international? So this is how it spread to other countries.
Oh, good. Is there anything else you want to talk about that you didn't get to mention yet, or?
There's something I can add for sure, is that science communication I think is really important for so many reasons. When you're scientists, your point of view is that it's good to train to talk to not just scientists that are doing exactly the same thing as you. I think it's also good sometimes to step back from your project and, see the big picture and learn how to talk about it to not just the public, but to anyone that is not the nose on it and very, very familiar with all the details. And I think it's really something we should all do, and more fundings are actually asking for it. So I would say, if you're not sure, you can always try Pint of Science, and we have guidelines. We are reassuring you on how to do it, and we're really trying to make sure you're gonna know. So basically, we send you a document before the festival, and if you read it correctly, there is all the tools to do a good science communication evening. And from all the speakers I've talked to, they were all super happy. Even some said that they did it, but they were not sure at the start, and they just loved it. And some of them want to do more science communication. So if you're a scientist really jumping, it's amazing. If you're a young scientist, a PhD, and you're not sure what you want to do later, I think it's a good opportunity to try. Either a Pint of Science or something else, a podcast, anything. Try and see how you feel, because, when you do science communication, you can only try it before you know if you like it or not. So that's a thing for speakers. But I would say as well for organizers, it's really, really a great experience. What we try to give to the organizers is freedom on the evening. So obviously we want the evening to be Pint of Science style. So we give them advice, we give them guidelines. We have everything ready for the night if they want to. So usually the night you have 2 talks and a break in between. The break can be either a pub quiz or any kind of, fun thing happening. Usually we have things ready. The quiz, for example, we prepare it. So if you don't have any idea, you just use the quiz as given to you. But you also can do anything. So if you like improv, you can organize a science improv as a break or things like that. And I think I heard from organizers that they really loved organizing Pint of Science, because you actually get to organize your own event. You pick the pub you like, you pick the speakers you like and you want to see, and then you organize the evening, a bit as you want, giving the guidelines, but still, and then you see it happening. And it's funny because some of the organizers that talked to me were like, oh, people are coming to my nights and I don't know them. It's amazing. You have people coming to my event, and it's not my mom or my girlfriend or my boyfriend. It's it's actual people I don't know, and usually they are super amazed because all those people they didn't know, and they come for Pint of Science and they are super happy at the end. And for them it's amazing because it gives them an opportunity to experience science communication and organizing events and things like that. So I would say, if you're in a country that organizes Pint of Science, do it. If you want, really do it. And I'm not going to say that to do some promotion of Pint of Science. I'm going to say that really because I think it's an experience that is worth trying at least once. And living, because it's amazing seeing that happening in all the countries at the same time. It's just great.
You're a fellow podcaster, as you mentioned in the beginning. What is your podcast about?
The podcast that I'm involved with is called Podcast Science. So it's a podcast about science, any kind of subject, and we're doing it every week. So weekly, we have a scientist coming and talking about a subject. It can be any kind of science. We really like all the subjects. We don't, we don't select only some kinds of science. It could be anything. And usually once a month we have a freestyle episode, which is more with people from the team. That can be smaller chronicles. So usually it's an hour. And it's a guest that is talking about the research he's doing or she's doing. And during the freestyle one, it's more like shorter chronicles about, I don't know, women in science, science communication, sometimes, funny science things we've seen and things like that. It's in French. It's called Podcast Science, sorry. So you can Google it. It's quite amazing. I don't have enough time at the moment to participate to every episode as I wish I could. But we're a team of, I don't know, I would say around 10 people. So it's not always the same person that is the host of the night. It's not always the same questions from the same people. So it's quite interesting to see different points of view depending on the nights and who's there.
Already during her days as a researcher, Elodie tried to explain her work to colleagues, friends, and family, which made her conscious about how to communicate effectively. As a professional freelance science communicator, she wants to encourage scientists to share their stories and to demonstrate that scientists are approachable. She loves it when people understand what she's trying to explain. Elodie switched to science communication in 2017 after she had been organizing Pint of Science for 4 years already. She joined Pint of Science because she was interested in organizing events. And when somebody else quit, she took the opportunity to become part of the core organizer team. The work of a science communicator can be diverse. For Pint of Science, Elodie trains speakers and gives promotional talks. But she also speaks about science on podcasts and radio shows, and trains scientists in public speaking and social media use. She was able to transition into freelance work relatively smoothly, but don't forget that she had established a profile over the previous 4 years, which was a lot of work. Pint of Science is an annual festival that was founded by Motskin and Praveen. Every year in May, scientists present their research to a public audience in a pub or a bar. It started in the UK in 2014, and it's now spread throughout the world, with official events in 24 countries. In 2018, 120,000 people visited Pint of Science events. The events are planned by local teams, which make up the 3,000 volunteers. This year, Pint of Science will be on May 20th to 22nd. To find out whether there are events in your area, visit the website pintofscience.com. Since we recorded the interview, the programs went online. For the summary, links to Pint of Science and further readings, find the show notes to this episode on www.scienceforprogress.eu. If you have questions, critique or suggestions, get in contact by email info@scienceforprogress.eu or on social media @SciForProgress for Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Please subscribe and rate this podcast on your podcast app and maybe write a review. This will really help us. My conversation with Elodie was relatively brief, but usually I have longer conversations with my guests, and you can listen to the extended versions of these episodes on Patreon. If you pledge about $6 or €5.40 per month, you get immediate access to all of these extended episodes, which go all the way back to September 2018. And if you don't like them, you can reduce your pledge or cancel. But I really hope to see you become a patron. Your support will help us keep going and continue to improve and grow. And there are more perks. Check them out on www.patreon.com/SciForProgress. I thank you very much for listening. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.